Bam, got it. Yo, what's up? This is Splendid Radio on Farside TV with my co-host Jeremy Scipio.
What's going on, people?
And a very special cat, man. I say a lot of cats are special, but James, man, he is one of the best things that came from a relationship that I had with a booking agency back in like the early 2000s. And
Mike Morey.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike. Yeah. And I heard he dropped out of the business, man. He ended up, doing something totally different or whatever, which I get it. I get it, I can talk about it because it's all whatever. And I ain't talked to Mike with, whatever. But kind of when Mike had gotten frustrated over something, and it wasn't necessarily me per se, but it was about this, and he got mad and said something to me, and he said, "Man, this hip hop stuff is too much work, man." He was like, "Man," he's like, "Man, this hip hop," and I kind of like, we were always kind of cool, so I didn't like, say like, "Man, 90% of the money that you guys get in commissions is coming from hip hop. What do you mean hip hop is a lot of work, whatever?" But I could just kind of tell that, dealing with all these rap bands and not that I'm the greatest manager or the coolest dude in the world, but there was a lot of guys that were a lot more difficult than me that he had to deal with. You know what I'm saying? So I get how hip hop could have beat him up a little bit. But that being said, the agency group, they, with Kurt and whatnot, they put us together with you, and you came up with the logo for a tour that was the first tour that Brown and I produced. It was the concept of it was to have California artists go out every year. But what we found out after the agency group jacked it from us, jacked the tour from us. Oh yeah, they jacked it from us for sure. And yeah, that's a whole other thing. But what we found out is there's only so many West Coast groups. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's only so many groups. And so they ended up taking artists that had albums coming out, and then really it would be the artist album tour after they kind of moved it away from us a little bit. And then like that would be CaliCom. So there was like the first year with us was it was Farside, Souls of Mischief, Cutmaster Kurt. What was that group's name?
It was Planet Asia.
No, Planet Asia. But did you do the logo? It was like the American flag. I mean, the America upside down.
Schoolyard. That was Planet Asia. That's Planet Asia's group. Yeah.
Yeah, Schoolyard. So yeah, it was a lot of cool cats. I talked to dudes to this day, and they're like, "Dude, that was the dopest tour we've ever been on." It was like 30 dates. It was like 30 dates in like 36 days, and we didn't start, but it was kind of like everywhere from Vancouver over to Toronto, and everything in between.
Yeah. That's a nationwide tour right there.
Yeah, no, that was a good one. Definitely, I would say definitely I got my feet wet on the road management side of that kind of thing, because there was a lot of managers out and about, but no one had really tour managed like that. And I kind of got my feet wet with like dealing with large groups of people, bus drivers, and just all that kind of stuff. So it was definitely a memorable experience. So I look at your art, and it's funny because it's like you have a style that is just it's like a signature thing. As a matter of fact, so we have a relationship with Omar from Taco Nazo too. And
Water the Plant.
I was looking at the Water the Plants logo when he at his studio, because his studio is like about maybe 10 minutes from our warehouse. And I was looking at these long letters and everything, and I was like, I know who drew that. And he's like, "Oh yeah, James." I'm like, "Man, James makes his rounds."
Guys all over the place.
Yeah. So where were you the first time you heard hip hop, and what was the song?
Well, it's funny. I think probably for me, I'm of the generation, it's like Buffalo Gals. I think that was the first time I heard like, a was called HipHop. But I don't think it was even really called at the time. It was just people were just still calling it soul. But for us, we had a club in Santa Cruz. It was called Club Culture, and we had a resident DJ, Bubba G Scotch. And he DJ'd at the club. It was all ages, so we could all go. We were like 14 and 15. And then he had a radio show that he'd do on Sunday nights, and he would play the open mic battles on the radio on Sunday. And those were like our albums. I mean, I don't think many of us even, hip hop was more of an experience for us. It wasn't something that you bought on vinyl, at least not yet. It hadn't really gotten into like, the Run DMC and Crush Groove years. That was a little bit before. So it was still this very much live experience for us, I think, early on. And I'm sure it was the same in Los Angeles, but I mean, for us in the Bay Area and Santa Cruz, it was very much like this thing you participated in. So I guess, but I'd say to answer your question, Buffalo Gals was the official first hip hop song with scratching. I remember hearing.
Yo, I just played a little bit of it. I didn't realize that's where that two trailer park girls go around me outside.
Yeah. It's still so good. It's such an odd record because it's like it's Malcolm McLaren
with the hat
who basically produced the Sex Pistols and then
goes
and does like this hip hop record. Yeah, he's like a real oddball. But
it reminded me of Jamiroquai and a couple other people. So it's funny how art keeps like imitating itself and reinventing itself, but it comes from, I mean, probably that guy got it from something, but that's really interesting.
Yeah.
When did you first realize you have a passion for illustration?
Oh, probably young. I think it was really young, actually. Something that I just read comic books as a kid, and then drew as best I could and drew anything I could see. And then when graffiti hit for me, that was kind of like everything came together. It was like all of a sudden I did graffiti. I could do it on walls. I could see it big. And I kind of got a reputation. I got a bit of a name for myself through that. And that just kind of, I had a crew, I had a group of friends. And that's, I think when that happens, you kind of just become a lifer, they say,
Yeah, I used to do graffiti and I was not a lifer.
Neither am I. I'm retired.
Yeah, I got arrested and it hurt my mother so much. I was like, that was the end of my graffiti career.
Yeah, I got popped a few times too. So yeah, it's a drag.
That's funny.
But
nah, that's dope. So what city did you grow up in, James?
Santa Cruz.
Okay. It's interesting because kind of the way that you described hip hop. I mean, there was vinyl, like in LA, there was like, I was just around people where the vinyl, like I remember the Run DMC vinyl and everything, but it's interesting because when I look at your art, it seems like you draw these characters that I've seen pop up a couple times and they kind of look like ska dudes or skinheads or whatever. And it's kind of like, and not the Nazi skinheads, but skinheads. And you can watch documentaries on that. You can watch documentaries on where the real skinheads came from and all that. If you guys want, people watching, if you want to get into that,
do your research.
Yeah, but there was black skinheads and there was white skinheads, and then the Nazi skinheads came long after. After.
Oh wow.
So it's interesting because I grew up in the South Bay, California, not Bay Area, but California, where so like when I was in junior high school, the Descendants had just first got their deal and they're from like Lomita, like 5 minutes from me. So I come from like a very ska, hip hop, punk rock, amalgamation of like all these different cultures and the way that we listen to music. Okay, you had your heavy metalers, you had your punks, you had your dudes, your people that were in the ska, and then you had your hip hop and the what do they call them? The Aquanet dancing, the people with the big hair,
the New Romantics.
Yeah. So all that stuff was going on.
Yeah.
But good music was just kind of good music, and everybody pretty much just kind of like shared music. And so even though, like, say for instance, hip hop might have been your thing, you'd have somebody that would turn you on to some dope punk or some dope ska or some, and it was crazy. Like I had a homeboy who he actually got me really into fishing. I do deep sea fishing and whatnot. But one of the cats that really got me into that was this black guy that was into hip hop, and he turned me on to the specials. And he would like bump Ghost Town and all that kind of stuff. And I was kind of like, okay, so he's into Run DMC, but he's into this other stuff.
Yeah.
And I say all that to say it kind of brings me back. You were talking about Malcolm McLaren and the Buffalo Gals and all that kind of thing, where there was a time where it was kind of like good music was just good music. You know what I'm saying? And then it was just shared amongst people versus you had to be this or you had to be that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think with club culture, the place I was telling you about from Santa Cruz, they had what they called soul nights on Saturdays and then on Fridays and Saturdays. But during the week, they had punk rock nights, and never the twain met. I mean, it was very much like Richie Rotten was he was the owner, and that was his dream, was to do punk and then have hip hop as well. And he tried to mix them both, and it was like a bit of a disaster because it was just. But it's funny. But at the time, I hated punk rock. I hated it as a kid. It was something I was totally against. And then I got into it as I got older. It was like this forbidden fruit kind of a thing, and I was like, and this is like the late '80s, and I got into British punk and all this stuff, and I was like, oh, this. But it was all old news by then, so I was like a late bloomer in a way, and
I never would have thought that. Like mine was like the reverse. Mine was like there was a lot of punk and ska and stuff going on.
Yeah.
And then the hip hop kind of got fed, fed to me. And then it's just kind of like, man,
that's most normal people. That's most normal people how they got into it. But I was backwards.
And it's not that hip hop was that I felt hip hop was doper than the punk and stuff that I was listening to, but it was just kind of like, okay, this is another breed of dog that's like I breed dogs. So I breed Old English bulldogs. I bred American bulldogs before that. So I like the bully breeds. And so like hip hop was like, oh, this is just another dope breed of dog that comes along, and I kind of liked them all the same. It wasn't like there was one genre that really shined. The way that we were introduced to music, it wasn't until high school that I kind of just like kind of moved away further into hip hop. But from like elementary, junior high school and all that, I mean, we listened to soul and everything, but it was just really like punk and ska and all that kind of thing, like with my growing up.
Well, so it's interesting. So as the skinhead thing kind of became something I became much more versed in and fascinated, and I just wanted to learn more about it. And a big component of that culture in the 60s was something called skinhead reggae. And it is that very Lee Perry organ music. It's almost like what you might think of as roller rink music. It's got a very strange quality to it, but it's this real specific genre of reggae. But there's a book called Cut and Mix that came out in like the 80s as well. And what it did was it showed you how the reggae of the 60s morphed into the dub of the early 70s, and then what became talk over, and these guys kind of just saying nursery rhymes over basically breaks. And then it showed you how that is, well, then Cool Herc, Jamaican immigrant, goes to New York City, basically becomes like one of the first DJs of New York that plays breaks along with Bambaataa. And so you figure out it's basically this, it's this, there's this through line through it all, and this is all part of the same story. And I think seeing that was like, oh, okay, this all makes sense now. It's all just part of the same trajectory.
It's almost like it was destined to happen. I mean, because you have so many different clashes of like different types of music that the result is going to be hip hop at some point anyway. Because I actually just looked it up, like skinhead reggae. I mean, the description, first of all, Google just had a whole meltdown real quick, but it's compute. But literally it's like the description was like, it had a little of everything. It's a subgenre of reggae with influences taken from ska, rocksteady, as well as soul, R&B. I mean, that's hip hop. I don't know how else to describe that.
Yeah. If you listen to those old Lee Perry records, I think they're amazing. They still hold up, but it's very much like this kind of. And the odd thing was about it is, here's another cultural angle, is that The Clint Eastwood movies that came out at the time, the spaghetti westerns, were really big in Jamaica. Like the kids loved them there. So what they did was they took the themes from all those and then made them into these reggae songs. So they're all called like The Return of Django and Fistful of Dollars. So there's this whole spaghetti western angle to it. And it's just interesting. It's just like globalization, you know.
On that note, I cannot remember the name of the movie, but I watched some of it last night. Dopest movie I've seen in 15 years, easy. You can look it up. It's on Netflix. It had Jay-Z produced it. It has
it's out right now?
Yeah.
The Harder They Fall.
Woo!
Yeah.
That movie is incredible. And they have reggae. That's so for the Western scenes, they have reggae music playing in the Western scenes. It was the acting is hard, the soundtrack is hard, but they have like reggae music is like the soundtrack of the Western. It's dope.
I gotta watch that. Huh.
Oh yeah.
I did not know about that.
What was your first interaction as a teenager working with art?
Teenager was probably, I mean, I think taking art classes and stuff, but I think the graffiti was really the thing that really captured me, and it became an obsession. I mean, I was obsessed. I was just so obsessed. And I think that what was amazing about it was it really took the individual artist and just completely it took you away from the like you didn't have to go through a gallery. Like there was no middleman. Like the gallery, not to bash art galleries, they're fine and great, but you didn't
love them now.
Well, yeah, but you didn't need that anymore. As a graffiti writer, it was like you just go straight to the end user, straight to the viewer. You didn't need to have a gallery to give you permission to do that. You just went and did it, and then and I love that part of it. I love the purity of that, and so that graffiti is to answer your question.
Real quick, also we have users just chiming in on the live on YouTube, whatever. So a couple people asked some questions. One of the questions that they have for you is, do you prefer working for the private client or the corporate client?
Oh, I mean, the corporate client's great because I can pay my pay my bills. That's fantastic. But the most gratifying ones are when you work directly with an artist and you get to really make something happen. And music videos were a big part of my forte, and that's always awesome when you work with an artist who you love and who you were a fan of anyway, and then you get to build this thing, and then you get to tell everybody you worked with that artist. That's amazing. So I guess a little of both to answer the question.
No, that's dope. As a matter of fact, I won't mention the artist's name, but I did like a deal with an artist where you did a very nice piece of artwork for me and I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
Because now that I print posters and everything, that will be going up on my wall.
Hey.
We're gonna before the first of the year, I'm that's gonna be the reward for myself for having kind of like an awesome year, just taking off with some stuff. Okay. So when you were in high school, senior year, before graduation, what did you think your path was going to be after you graduated?
Oh, I had no idea. I had no plan. My parents didn't go to college. No one in my family went to college, so that wasn't even discussed. I think it was always this thing. Oh, you could take a few classes here and there. So I didn't have a plan. I don't recommend that for anybody. I think that it's probably a good idea to do that. Just don't get yourself in too much debt. I avoided the debt, which is probably. I'm so blessed to have avoided the debt of college, but I didn't have a path. I had a series of events that happened that really kind of got me on my way. And the biggest one really was I got hired at Santa Cruz Skateboards. My friend Dimitri Tyler said, hey, he had just got a job there, which was like the ultimate. I mean, to get a job. That's
a big deal.
It was a huge deal. And you were designing boards, you were doing wheels, you were doing all the, when I first met you, you had the whole screening business.
Yeah.
That's basically what they did. And so you had to learn that stuff. And so I got the job there, and that changed everything. It changed everything for me, man. It was so profound. I spent the first like 6 months thinking I was going to get fired. Like I just thought like this is because you get that imposter syndrome. You just think like, I don't think I belong here. And I spent 4 years there, and it was really like, it was 4 years of college essentially. But it was that board you see above my head right there. That's the first thing I did. Like my first month. So a long board right there.
Okay.
Yeah. But it is incredible job, man.
Cool. So how has music played a role in the art that you draw or illustrate?
It's a big one. I think it informs it in many ways through subculture and through style and everything else. I think with graffiti, especially, it's all about movement and everything else. But I think that getting into music videos, obviously, the music's an important part of that. And so, yeah, I think it's a big part of it. Just being associated with the Far Side and everybody else. I mean, that was like, completely by accident, and it was a pleasant surprise. But yeah, I can't not be part of it. It can't not be part of my art.
So, Stone's Throw. How did that relationship come to be, leading into the MF Doom famous video? And then let's talk about some of the work that all caps video for MF Doom that you did that you got from doing that video.
It's insane. So I worked at a company called Den when I first moved to LA. It was a digital entertainment network. There's a whole Wired article about this company because it just went up, and it's like this really it was one of the .com like just crazy stories where it went up in flames, and it's just one of the biggest scandals of the .com era. But it was an amazing job, and I worked there. Me and this guy Small J had a show, and we would interview different artists. We interviewed Kurt. Exhibit would come through, Defari. I mean, it was all of a sudden I'm meeting all these LA people, and Peanut Butter Wolf was one of these people, and he had just moved down, and he had just got through doing the Loop Pack record with Madlib at Kurt's house, and Kurt and me grew up together. Cutmaster Kurt and I are like friends from when we were 14, so it was like a connection. It's like, oh, okay, so we met, and then years later I emailed him and said, hey, I'd love to do something for Madlib because I'm a huge Madlib fan, and just whatever you guys got. And so he wrote back and said, hey, as a matter of fact, he's doing this project with this guy Doom, and maybe you could do this song Money Folder. So he sent me the record, and yeah, it was just like, oh wow, this is going to be a good project. Because I was already a fan of Madlib, and then you have Doom's lyrics on there, and it's just, geez. So yeah,
like
it happened. Yeah.
Wow. Nah.
What was the first Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator you worked on?
Oh, what version?
Yeah.
Oh my God. 4? I don't even know, man. It's so crazy because I took classes. I didn't have a computer yet, so I took classes at this community college, and I could only use you go work in the lab, and so I'd use whatever they had, and just being able to use that software was such a privilege. It was just like, I could never own this, but I get to use it. And it was exciting to use. And then when I got the job at NHS, I used it every single day for work as an occupation. And that obviously wasn't as exciting, but I mean, first sitting in front of those programs is a little bit of a religious experience in a strange way, So.
Dope. So how did you come to cross paths with Mr. Kurt?
Oh, Kurt was a BMX bike kid when we were 13 or 14 with an Iron Maiden shirt. And, like we all were, kind of little Hessians.
Real quick. So Cutmaster Kurt, just for the people that don't know, he's this guy that ended up owning a record label for several years, and he worked with everybody from Kool Keith, and at the time Kool Keith was very elusive. He didn't really work with anybody, didn't deal with anybody, but Kurt could get he could wrangle Keith into these projects, which they did a million of them.
Yep.
you know, they did a million of them. Kurt is the guy who he had signed Schoolyard, Planet Asia's group with was Rascal in Schoolyard?
No, he wasn't. But I think
so
he was. It was Roscoe and Planet Asia they put a record out on Stone's Throw.
Okay, yeah. And so, but the Schoolyard was like the younger guys, or whatever. Like
it was all his buddies from Modesto. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, from the Bay. But it was crazy because and Kurt was a very good DJ. That was the whole other little twist to it. But it was crazy because if you weren't introduced to him in the realm of music, you'd never think he had anything to do with it. You know what I'm saying? Just by looking, just interacting or just looking.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say that it's interesting because this like kind of the unspoken like white side of hip hop that doesn't get acknowledged. It's kind of funny because a lot of the references are that white side of hip hop that though hip hop is a black genre, like there's a lot of integral white people that added to the culture that made it what it is today. There's like the legends. I think a lot of people, it stops at the Beastie Boys for people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But Linkin Park, that's technically hip hop too, as well as they got Dilated Peoples and all that stuff. But anyway,
Kurt,
yeah, he worked with all these people, so I think that's kind of dope.
Well, for Kurt, so we first met, and I think that we all got into hip hop around the same time, and then he had turntables. No one had turntables back then. So he had turntables. Yeah, he was the guy who had turntables.
He's always been privileged.
Yeah, so so it was like, okay, he's a little more serious than everybody else, right? That's how we thought. And it was like, wow. So we go over to his house and make tapes. Well, then he got a job DJing at KUSP, which was like this local public radio station in Santa Cruz, and he became their Saturday night guy for like 2 hours. And he would play, and then he got a part of a record pool. He's 15 when this is happening. Wow. And all of a sudden he's part of a record pool, and he's getting all these records, and he's meeting Bubba, who was our hero at the time. And then he's starting to meet rappers from the Bay Area, and he's starting to produce records when we're still in high school. So he was kind of on, I think I kind of meandered a bit and didn't take it as seriously. He was really serious. He was like, I'm going to make this happen. And so he was the first person to put out records that I knew. Him and Peanut Butter Wolf have a very interesting, there's interesting parallels with those two. So Kurt went ahead and did that. And then it's basically Kurt would bring back all the Mr. Magic tapes from New York and the Red Alert tapes. That was kind of like our connection to New York radio, which was everything back in the 80s. I don't know if it is anymore, but
I think it has somewhat of a resurgence, but I don't think the impact will ever be what it was.
Not what Mr. Magic did in the 80s. I mean, that was for me, that was hip hop. I mean, Mr. Magic's show and Red Alert and Chuck Shillot shows that's where you heard everything first. And then Bobbito and Stretch and everybody else. But so Kurt goes to New York every summer to go visit his uncle. And for some damn way, he gets to meet Bambaataa and Jazzy J and all these people. And so now he's kind of hobnobbing with all like these people who are our heroes. And it was just unbelievable. And he's still a teenager. And then somehow he meets Ultramagnetic, who are also our heroes.
Man.
And then he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go drive him around the city and show him around. And him and Keith hit it off.
Man. Next thing ever.
Yeah. And then this is fast forward about 1992. We're all still living, in like our houses with all our dude friends. Kurt's still at home with his parents. And so Keith's coming into town to go record a few tracks with him. And so we go to Kurt's house, and here's cool Keith at Kurt's parents' house, hanging out. It's the most surreal thing. And so we're all over there almost like, and so we're inviting our friends to come over. God, cool Keith's over here. No, he's here. And and it was just this moment. I know people who are listening who are aware of this probably are smiling because it was really and then from there, they got signed to Capitol and moved to LA together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was like he had arrived We're all still in home. We're all still living in Santa Cruz, not knowing what we're going to do with our lives. He signed to Capitol Records and living with Cool Keith in Beverly Hills.
Wow.
So that's how Kurt was for us. He was like this guy he was a triathlete, so to speak.
It makes a lot of sense what you're saying. And I got up with Kurt over that. We did his dad asked for one of those Motion Man shirts. And you hooked up the color steps for me and everything. And that's what we did for his dad's birthday.
Yeah.
So I got to see a whole different version of Kurt, man. He had 2 little ones running around. Smart kids, though. Smart as the whip.
Yeah, he's got 2 kids, but I think, he was one of the most driven people I knew. He really was. Kurt was, I consider him, like, if not my best friend, one of my best friends. I mean, he's been a brother with me ever since we were young. But I think, he was just such he basically, I had just learned animation when I moved down to LA, and he's the one who said to me, so I'm putting out this record with Keith in Motion, and it's called Masters of Illusion, and we want to do an animated video. And I said, well, I've never done anything longer than 30 seconds. I can't do 3 minutes. 3 minutes seems like, in animation, 3 minutes is like a lifetime.
Yeah.
He said, oh, you could do it. No, you could do it. He said, I'll pay you. And I was like, okay. I said, well, so I spent 2 months in my kitchen. Greg remembers my kitchen studio. And I built that video, and we put it out, and it got a lot of coverage, and then the phone started ringing, man, and everything changed after that. It was kind of crazy.
So tell me this. I know I made it a long-winded question, but I got to double back to it.
Okay.
So when you did the all caps video, name some of the work that came after that and some of the people who you had the opportunity to work with.
Oh man, it's so Cut Chemist called me right after that, and I love Jurassic 5, and anybody from Jurassic 5 calls me, I'll answer the phone, and so I've and me and Cut have worked together over the years. Newmark as well. Wu-Tang, Jizza. I got the email from Jizza's publicist. The Genius is interested in doing a graphic novel project with you. And I was like, this isn't real. And next thing you know, I'm on the phone with Jizza, and we're talking about comic books. And then all of a sudden I get this big, giant, fat check in the mail. Like, oh, time to get started. You're going to write the graphic novel about the Wu-Tang when they're kids. And that's what I spent a year. I spent a year doing this graphic novel. It got shelved, but they paid me the entire.
Those were the days, man.
Right.
Days.
Serena Williams, through an agency, said, "Hey, we want to do an animated version of her, where she's on a billboard, animated." Okay, a billboard. Okay, whatever. And they said, we have 3 weeks to do this. And then they say, yeah, it's going to be multiple billboards. So she's going to be jumping from billboard to billboard. I said, okay. I said, can you send me the template? So the agency sends me the template, and it's Times Square. So it's all the screens in Times Square, and they want her jumping from screen to screen to screen to screen. And we had 3 weeks to do this. We had an insane budget. So as another project, Danger Mouse, through Cartoon Network, we ended up working with him in Doom. Czarface, that ended up happening, obviously, because of the Doom connection. And then just all the stone. I mean, we'd be here all night if I told you. It opened so many doors, man. It was.
So you like kind of what you are, the illustration is Jeremy's relationship with like comics. Like he's that guy. It's not like you're bragging right now, and that's why I wanted you to.
Thank you, but
Jeremy.
I don't deserve that much credit. I don't deserve that much credit.
If magicians were rabbits getting pulled out of a hat, Jeremy will start pulling them. You'd be like, okay, when's he gonna stop? He's pulling out all these relationships. Like, oh, okay.
Tell him to shut up.
Nah, man. I say that the difference is, he's worked on some legendary stuff, man. I'm just getting started, you know what I mean?
You got the relationships though. That's the, that was what I meant. No,
Oh,
that's dope.
okay.
Look, here's the thing. I think an important thing to take away is like when the Masters of Illusion thing happened, I did that. I didn't do those things. I didn't do those types of projects. And I basically told Kurt, I don't do that. And he said, well, why don't you just try? I could have easily just said no and gone on with my married life. But you know what? I took a chance. And, I think that was a huge learning. It was a big learning experience for me. It was just like, sometimes you just have to like do something scary, because that was scary. Because it's my friend, he's paying me a good chunk of cash and I couldn't let him down. I had to finish. But then the phone rings and it's Biz Markie. And he says, no, this is number 2. So the first one's Masters of Illusion. It was like, okay, that was fun. Well, I get a call from Biz Markie. That's kind of like, oh, okay. And he's got a giant budget. And that scared the shit out of me, because it's like, this is someone who I admire, but it's like kind of a big deal. And it's a label. I can't screw this up. It's so much money. It started to kind of scare me. And I took that one too. And it worked out. It's embarrassing to watch now, but it worked out and they were happy. And it's kind of like, I think you just have to do those things. And I think a lot of artists and people, they don't do those things because I think it's scary and it's uncomfortable. And I think that experience for me, I bring that up because it's intimidating as hell. And I think, I don't know, never be afraid to open the door, I guess is the point I'm trying to make,
Well, when you say open the door, like what do you mean specifically? I mean, just take risks.
To do something, to get out of your comfort zone. Because those 2 projects I'm talking about right now are huge out of my comfort zone. And I would have never dreamed of doing that. And yes, they're big names and it's a cool name to drop and blah, 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 blah. But it's more than that. It's more like, this could damage me in a way. This could be embarrassing. And just, I've told so many people about it and then maybe it doesn't work out. But I think you have to take that risk. And, that's one thing about art, man. I tell you, get out of your comfort zone, try new stuff, because I think that's just vital. And I think as you get older, it's harder to do that.
I think this feeds right into this next question. Does faith play a role in your decision-making process?
Yeah, it does. I mean, maybe not directly, but I think it's there under the surface for sure. I'm not going to say it's so much fate. I think it is. I think we have paths that we can take, and there's, as I'm saying, these chances I took, I didn't have to take them, but I do think that you do have to have that. You have to have that little bit of faith, I think, to try and to go someplace where it's an act of faith essentially.
Brown doing Dirty Harry with the Gorillas. That was we did one song with Danger Mouse, and then it was kind of like with the record label and everything. It was kind of like a funny little thing. And then Danger Mouse, he knew it was a funny little thing. So he came back and he asked Brown to come and, he said he had a concept for a song. And then at the time, we were trying to push other people because Brown kind of, like, he never wanted to just like hop into stuff. So we kind of actually mentioned someone else that might be cool for the song. And then Danger Mouse was like, no. He has this vision and it has the guy who started off Passing Me By or whatever. And I was actually printing shirts at the time. And dude, no cap, I was doing a George Clinton order. And so this is when we were in Koreatown. So Brown goes up to the studio and I don't go with him, and he does it. And he's like, man, it was something different than I've, ever done. There's a lot of guitars, there's stuff going on or whatever.
It was the Clash.
And then 5 or 6 months later in Australia, I get a phone call from Danger Mouse. And one thing I'll say about him, man, out of all the people I've done business with in hip hop, he's been the most fair, the most straight up, the most genuine. We're not like, we haven't talked in years or whatever, but like, it was nothing was a chore working with him. And he just went out of his way to be fair. And I can honestly say to date, I've never experienced anybody with that kind of passion.
Yeah.
And to back to your point, and I'm on some motivational stuff like this.
Hey,
So
hey,
I snatch motivation from everything. So like hearing you
talk
speak,
that talk.
yeah, hearing you speak about, taking chances, like getting out of your comfort zone, like man, and then to hear you say, okay, you started this thing out with graffiti and whatnot, and then now you're getting these huge checks, and then you're like, man, do I take the check? Do I do it? How do I figure it out? And the thing about it is, man, if it's what you do, you figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You just you figure it out. You've been really successful, and I'm proud of you, man.
Oh, I appreciate it, Greg. I mean, that means a lot to hear that. Look, when I talk about checks or money, I don't mean the monetary sense of it. What I do mean is that it really is, it's skin in the game. It means that it's a scary thing, because now someone's really putting something over your head. If they said do it for free, it wouldn't be the same, because what they're doing is all of a sudden they're putting like this giant down payment, and it's just like crap. And it's like, well, the worst thing that happens is I just have to give it back. And I've been prepared to do that. But I think that it's someone doing that, it means they're not messing around. Because how many times as an artist have you been with folks whose stuff hasn't worked out? It's all talk. Maybe they ponied up a 6-pack of beer as payment. I mean, I did so much work for free. I can't even begin to tell you. But when someone all of a sudden is serious and has a big giant 10-page contract, which you could never possibly understand, and you sign it, that's freaky, man.
One of the things I tell people, working in hip hop and the music industry, and talking to millionaires and talking to, CEOs of these companies doing things and whatever, I've heard a lot of hot shit. Like I've heard people just tell me all kinds of just incredible stuff. I've gone to people's offices and they've taken me to lunch in their Rolls Royces, and Brown and I to these restaurants in Beverly Hills and all that. But you know what really turns me on? A contract via email that I need to send to an attorney to figure out how much bread are we going to get. You know what I'm saying? Those are the moments. Those are the true moments where that kind of define the work, the passion, the everything, where, okay, this is something beyond club talk. It's beyond even where your mind is. Someone's actually sending you something that's in a language that's English, but it's beyond your comprehension. And so you have to go to the translator, which is the attorney. And then it gets to a point of where really you don't even communicate with the people, like with the engagement, this dance that you do. It's like, well, okay, we'll let the attorneys, get it out. And then as long as you're down with it and then they're down with it, then the attorneys get together and they work their little magic or whatever. And the end result is like, it is magic.
Yeah. No, it's true. It really is. That's wonderful to be able to have that resource. But the contract in a sense just means they're dead serious. And there could be small print on there basically saying, if this doesn't work, you owe us the money. And that's scary, but it puts a fire under your ass and makes you do things you could have never thought you would do. I mean, it's a great motivator.
What's the best advice anyone's ever given you?
Oh, man, there's been some good stuff. I think an art teacher told me once that, it's really up to you. That was like a bit of a cold glass of water in my face as a teenager. Because I think you grow up thinking you don't really think of the manifest destiny idea. I think as a teenager, you think it's all, everything's rigged. It's all, these people have that because they get that and blah, 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 blah. And I'm always going to be this guy. It's a caste system. And I think that when she said that was this weird thought of like, oh, you kind of make it up as you go. Like no one, sure, it helps if you have rich parents. Of course it helps if you have fucking rich parents. But I mean, for the most part, it's like, you can keep telling yourself that all you want. Yeah. And you can have this lottery ticket mentality where, well, someday I'll get the right client. Someday I'll win the lottery. But her saying that to me was just like, no. This is totally up to you. And you either give a shit or you don't. And man, it was just like, oh yeah. And then you start knocking on doors and getting told no. And then eventually getting told yes. That's important, man. So that a piece of advice she gave me was very, it was so liberating, man. You know?
What's your favorite album cover?
Ready as a Funk, by Sonic Force. Oh, Paul's Boutique's a really good one. I'm trying to think.
Let's see all these.
Oh, there's so many. This is hard. Yeah, I'll just say Renegades of Funk because it made sense. Hip hop, comic books.
Okay.
Two favorite things.
Renegades. I gotta see this.
What artist has influenced you the most?
Oh, Jack Kirby.
Oh, nice one.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna go there with that. That's funny.
Yeah, he's as a kid, I was more into John Byrne and more into Neil Adams, but as I got older, Jack Kirby's like, oh, he's done so much, and he's like Galactus and all these superheroes.
Yeah,
the Eternals. I mean, my God, that's ultimate Jack Kirby, and now it's like this huge movie. I took my kids to go see it. Yeah, Jack Kirby.
I like John Romita. I mean, but it's like all that's same, you know, that classic look. But I don't like John Romita Jr. I hate it. I'm a big Spider-Man. I hope you don't know.
No, I don't. But it's interesting you say that. Yeah, I feel the same way.
And it's okay, good, because you know we got Michael Turner. You got so many like dope. You also got Rob Liefeld. You know, with the super duper muscle. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, he's famous for having it's some cable picture, I think, that's like anatomically impossible. Yeah. Like you can see all the muscles from the back side and the front side. But yeah, John Romita Jr., like, okay, I'm a big Spider-Man fan, and he squares off his heads, and Spider-Man has a round head, and it's like his characters are very boxy.
Seems rushed. His stuff seems rushed.
Yeah. I don't. And it's just funny to me that this funny. This is a hot take, even though nobody knows.
That's okay. I'm having a great
time. I don't think he should be considered a great comic book artist. I think it
legacy.
Of course, I mean, obviously the name, but it's just when I look at his work, I look at it and go like, yo, I was killing this when I was young, you know, like he's like making pivotal story arcs in comic books, and it's not that good.
He's quoted as saying, "This is just a paycheck for me."
Really?
He's quoted as saying that somewhere.
See, I'm glad. You know, it's funny. You validated something for me that's something I just never really expressed out loud. That's so funny. I really don't like John Romita Jr. and his work, and it makes sense because he doesn't care.
His dad had that way of drawing. He had just this very soft kind of line that it's timeless, man. I love that stuff. I love his dad's stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what you could tell. Like, they based the new, Spider, because you know they go through so many looks. They based the new Spider-Man look off of his art style.
Yeah, sure.
Which is the definitive look, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, this other stuff, you know, like I said, all right. Anyway, I don't want to go in on him again.
Nah, we gonna have James back, man. I'm thinking of several conversations that we can have. This is a good one. This is a good one. So, what's the ultimate goal, James?
Ultimate goal, I think, is just to work with I love working with younger artists. I love just kind of having them have some of the same. I think it's more convincing them that they've got all the tools at their disposal, and that it's I'm not gonna say it's easier for them than ever, but man, it's like there's so many opportunities out there with like the internet and getting your work out there and talking to people. And I really enjoy kind of mentoring younger kids and just, or even adults who are like just curious about getting into this stuff. I really do, because I think it's it's like I had a pretty good break. I was super lucky, and I feel like it'd be nice to kind of see other people thrive as well. So.
Mm-hmm.
So with all this versus stuff going on, you're familiar with versus, right?
Yeah, I am familiar with versus. Yeah.
What would your dream versus be? They could be dead or alive, in cross genres.
Oh, so not just MCs.
Whatever.
I don't know. That's a tough one. There's so much to pull from. If we keep it strictly MCs, I would say like I'd love to see Cool G Rap and someone comparable. Cool G Rap and Big Daddy Kane. That's that would be fun to see that.
I actually felt like that was more accurate than Big Daddy Kane and
KRS.
KRS-One. Yeah, KRS-One is supposed to go against Rakim, and Big Daddy Kane is supposed to go against Cool G Rap, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Nah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fun. I'm glad they're doing that though. I think it's pretty cool. I'd love to see them do like some version of like the DMC. Remember those old DMC DJ?
Yeah.
Getting those on video and seeing like Rock Raider and the Scratch Pickles. I'd love to see that happen again. I mean, I'm sure it is in some way, shape, or form, but I feel like in the late 90s, like DJing came back in a big way, and I was so happy about it. And then I don't know what it was. I think Phantom Menace came out and then it just died. I don't know what it was. Who knows? But
Thanos.
Yeah. But I love that stuff. I love turntablism. I think that's something it's a big part of my I don't know. Yeah.
Describe yourself 5 years ago.
5 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. A little frustrated. I was a little frustrated 5 years ago. I'm definitely not as frustrated, but I was frustrated 5 years ago.
The Rona break chilled you out.
Yeah, well, that, and I think it was also just, I just kind of, I won't go into it. It would be boring for everybody to hear. But I think professionally, I was, I was a little bit hit a bit of a dead end, and have since come out of it for sure. But it's what happens as an artist, man. Get used to it. It's going to happen to you multiple times. You got to get the tools to get yourself out of it. I'm telling you, it's inevitable.
Dope.
You never get rid of the doubt. You never get rid of the doubt. You just learn to dance with it.
So this will be the last question.
Okay.
And this is a question that I hit everybody with, and everyone has a very interesting take on it. With what you've seen since the coronavirus, where do you see the progression of live social interaction going in the next 2 years?
Live social interaction. You're never going to replace human physical interaction. I think that's the one thing I definitely learned. I think I kind of smoked from the pipe dream of virtual interaction and thinking that I think I've definitely, I'll double down on the fact that I think that we are a very physical, sensual species that need that. We've had millions of years of evolution that have got us here. And I think thinking that we can just all of a sudden take a right turn into virtual is nonsense. Even that I'm interested in the AR stuff, the VR stuff. I think that's interesting, but I still don't think it's going to be, what people think it is. It's not going to be a surrogate. So I think live, can't get away from it, guys.
Jeremy understands that he's a comedian, man. He's standing up on stages telling jokes.
You have to be in front of an audience, man. There's no,
The value of live interaction, it's funny because I felt like it was going away, but it increased dramatically very, very recently. So, and even I've referenced this a couple times. We're about to see record-breaking numbers with the Spider-Man box office. Like it should be bigger than the Avengers, which would be weird because we thought that this would not happen. So I think it's even more interesting what's going to happen in the future now than a couple years ago when we were saying like, yo, this is the end of everything. So
yeah, I mean, it was sad for a lot of people who own. I mean, God, I can't tell you how many people I know open bars in New York and restaurants in February. Just lost everything. Yeah, and they didn't lose their lives, so that's good. But so it sucked. But I think that I think for the long haul, I'll put my money on physical interactions.
So with that being said, you want to give your social media information where people can come check you out if they want to hire you to work on some stuff?
Yeah, it's at TFU Studios. You can come check it out. It's my Instagram page. I don't do a lot of updates on there just because I just don't have the time. Social media is it can be such a slog. But I mean, sometimes there's just regular stories or whatever on stuff I'm working on or what have you. And then and then you can check us out on there. I'm doing a book with this magazine called Boots and Booze. And that's at Boots and Booze magazine. And that's like stories of our teenage years, of all the stuff we've been talking about. And we have our second volume we just put out with like this really cool rocksteady group called the Liquidators. So check that out. But that's at bootsandboozemagazine.com. It's probably a lot more exciting than my social media is because Joel, he refreshes it every day. My buddy Joel Loya. So that's basically where you could find me, guys, at TFU Studios.
No, that's dope. And you, Jeremy, you have anything coming up this week?
I think I'm not 100% sure yet, but I think I'm going to be in Austin with Craig's Facts podcast. So we'll see. I think that's going down. I literally had to change some things in my schedule, so we'll see.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you, James. I mean, man, whenever I throw the bat signal up, you appear.
I always answer when Greg Campbell calls me. That's always going to be a thing.
Yeah, and I'm glad I got a chance to nerd out with somebody on the art tip. You know what I'm saying? That don't happen often. So,
Jeremy, I got my long boxes behind me. I got my Hulk 181 behind me.
What?
We could go for. Oh yes, I have some nice stuff.
I'll be in touch.
No, we're gonna do another podcast. I'm gonna try to get it in January, and I want to pull in Ink Pulp. Sean, he's another graphic artist, and he does illustration also from another angle. And I love to ask both of you guys some questions. And then Jeremy, he's a little more nerdier than what I thought, man. He's very versed in comic book stuff. Like
it's scary,
smart, man.
It's scary, smart. Bro. The things I know, I can't even. I'm like, is it okay to tell this? Because he gonna know I know more than I know. So
yeah. No, all good. Well, no, thank you guys. And this has been Splendid Radio on Farside TV.
Thank you. Peace.
Thanks, guys.